Hi, Yes But Why listeners. This is your host, Amy Jordan. This is episode 200 of the Yes But Why podcast, and I can't believe we've come so far. When I first started this podcast with co-hosts Wendell and Delia, we wanted to talk to different Austin improvisers. But since then, I've opened up to interviews with lots of different kinds of creative people from all over the world, and I hope you've enjoyed it all. I'm talking to you now, and I hope to add intros like this to all new episodes going forward. I want to connect with you more and share with you my experience of each guest. But before we talk about this week's guest, let's talk about our sponsors. This episode of Yes But Why podcast is sponsored by Audible. You can get your free audiobook download and your 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/yesbutwhy. With hundreds of thousands of titles to choose from, you can stay on top of the New York Times bestsellers list, or you can listen to your favorite writer's entire collection. It's up to you. You're going to consume your content anyway. It might as well be with the best in the biz. The Audible app is available for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Download your free audiobook today at audibletrial.com/yesbutwhy. Also, check out our sponsor, podcastcadet.com. This is a brand new website built to cater to the needs of new podcasters. Real talk, this is my husband and my effort to bring the podcasting workshop we've been doing at festivals to a larger audience. Let us be there for you. At podcastcadet.com, get connected to professionals who can provide you with the support and advice you'll need as you start your own creative project. Having sponsors is a big deal these days. To me, it's not because I'm expecting to go full-time podcasting and get the sponsor kickbacks to pay all my bills. Rather, we at the HC Universal Network want to find you small businesses that you can shop from. We want to support small family businesses like us. We also want to find you the best resources available for your podcast listening or making needs. So occasionally, we'll advertise for a big business like Audible, but only because they really are the best at what they do. This week on Yes But Why, we feature Houston-based horror writer Jessica Raney. Jessica and I originally talked in mid-November, and then right before her episode was supposed to go live, the computer I had it saved on died and lost all our files. Thankfully, Jessica was really easygoing about it, and she and I re-recorded a chat to present to you now. In this episode, Jessica and I talk about the legend of Sleepy Hollow, binge-watching TV, and the Golden Girls fan fiction we wish was in the world. We also talk a lot about the amazing group of writers that Jessica works with in Houston. So I present to you Yes But Why, episode 200, Jessica Raney and the value of community to a writer. Enjoy. I'm Amy Jordan, and this is Yes But Why podcast. Yeah.
I think Shirley Jackson is, people always, they want to say, oh, she's a horror writer for sure. And she is, but not for the reasons that I think maybe other people think she is. I prefer the mundane horror. I prefer her creepy old lady stories. Like, you can just imagine these creepy old ladies riding buses around, and she's always got something really involved with, like, somebody bought a piece of meat and they're going to cook it. It's real messed up. So I think that's a creepier horror to me, like that sense of loneliness and just weird, like, specificity. And, The Lottery is a classic horror story. It's not a long horror story. And you're not really sure what's going on until the end of it. Of course, everybody knows what's going on now because everybody's had to read it from school or whatever. But, when you first read it, you don't know what it's about. You're like, what is this dumb story? This is not even interesting. And then you get to the end, you're like, oh my gosh, okay, that's not right. And it's in a weird time too, like when you read it, because I just recently read it again. You know, you can't tell exactly the time frame of it, so it could be, you want to say it's like pilgrims or whatever, but it's not. Like it's somewhere else, and that's even more disturbing to me. But I think that's what's really cool about Shirley Jackson is it's weirdly specific and indeterminate in some ways. Like you can't really tell what's going on. So she's a master of horror. There's no doubt in my mind. But
yeah,
I know not everybody sees it that way, but I do for sure.
Well, you know, I think of horror in a similar way to, you know, sort of the tension building that she does, because to a certain extent, whether or not, you know, you say like when you read it, you're like, what's going on? Like, what's, you know, who cares what this is? And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa. But I really feel like she builds tension from the very beginning. And that's kind of what horror is all about. Like sort of creating a scenario where you're like, wait, what's going on? Wait, what's happening? I don't understand. People seem scared. Why are they scared? Like, because that's sort of the essence of a lot of horror films too. It's like these people are like, this guy named John, he's really scary and we're all super scared of him. Don't go near that cabin where he lives. And like, then it's like, cool, let's go to that cabin, you know? And it's almost like similarly, she creates a like, something's going to happen. I wonder what it is. It's not going to be good. Something's going to happen. And then by, you know, a few sentences in, you're like, okay, seriously, what's going to happen? You know? And the horror part, in my opinion, is sort of like the pulling out of that. Even the like extra details about like one specific person. And like, oh, I really feel this way. And this guy wasn't here because he was at this thing. And that, it's like, get to the point. But that's the essence. Like, that's why it's awesome.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, horror is about making you uncomfortable in some way. Like it's going to use some emotion, some feeling to make you uncomfortable. And different horror uses different things to do that. You know, if it's like a body horror, they're going to use like people chopping off arms and legs to do it, or just weird stuff coming out of your body. If it's the splatter punk, it's going to be the gore. If it's a ghost story, it's obviously a ghost. If it's, you know, any number of subgenres of horror, it's going to be something different, but they're all just trying to make you uncomfortable and face something that you don't want to face. That's why we like it. It's cathartic. So.
Yeah. Sometimes I think about that with comedy too. I had a comedy teacher one time tell me that comedy and horror were very similar in their formats, in the way that they build and break tension. And, you know, the way that they'll offer up information in sometimes a totally unnecessary way just to distract you. But
absolutely. You know, I mean, they both have the setup, they both have the middle part, and then they have the payoff at the end. Whether it's a joke or whether it's a horror movie, it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting how those kinds of stories come together. Were you writing before, like, so... Like I said, it was purely in my, you know, like research of Jessica Raney and the amazing interviews I found on you. And one of them, you know, had mentioned that story and your interest in it. Was that the story that kind of led you on the path of writing horror yourself, or of writing altogether?
Nope.
No.
Nope. The
interesting.
penultimate horror story for me, and the one that I remember vividly from being really little, is The Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Oh.
So I have been a fan of that story since I could read, probably. And I remember watching like an old, I think it was on TV, but it had Jeff Goldblum as Ichabod Crane. I remember, and it was just weird. It might have had Kirstie Alley in it too. I don't know, or one of those actresses that looks like Kirstie Alley. There's like 3 of them. But anyway, so I remember seeing that, and then every time I would go to the library in elementary school, I would check that book out of the library and read it and read it and read it. And you know, I've seen the Disney cartoon, which is terrifying, and probably every iteration of Sleepy Hollow since, you know, I've read it. But that's my go-to story. That's my, you know, it's a chase. It's the unknown. It's like, you don't know what's really going on. Is it actually a ghost or not? And also the guy doesn't have a head, and I don't like stuff that doesn't have heads. That's really off-putting. So it's just, that's been it. And I've been terrified. Like there's only like maybe 3 things that more things that terrify me: heights, rats, and the headless horseman, and maybe Heidi Klum. But that's a different story. But like, she's terrifying. But anyway, like, you know, the headless horseman is my ultimate boogeyman. Like, that's the one that I don't want coming after me. I'll take anybody else. I'll take Jason, Freddy, Candyman, like Michael Myers. I'll take all of them on. I do not want the headless horseman after me at all. I will freak out.
Yeah. I mean, it's not great.
I remember, it's been maybe like 10 years ago. I used to live in Ohio, and there's a big amusement park in Cincinnati, Ohio. It's called Kings Island. And for 1 year at Halloween, they decorate the whole place and they make it into like a horror place. A lot of amusement parks do that. And so, but they did the Headless Horseman's haunt. And there was like a haunted hayride, and you went to the Headless Horseman's lair. And someone was like, do you want to go to? And I was like, how many adult diapers can we fit in the car? Because that's how many I'll need to go through that. I will literally crap my pants the whole time. I will be so scared. But I kind of wanted to do it at the same time, and that's what horror is, right? Like, I'm terrified of it, but yeah, I still want to watch it. So,
yeah,
that's my jam. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. That was the original one for me.
I think pushing ourselves to limits that feel, unsafe but turn out to be kind of safe is all about what horror is. There's also like, a certain level of distance. My like method of dealing with when I'm super freaked out by horror films is to get really obsessed with like who's doing the makeup and like what sort of puppeteers worked on it, because like if I can start thinking about it that way, then it eases it up for me. I'm not like, oh, this is real. Like, I'm like, oh, I see this particular, I'll like immediately go to IMDb and start like researching like the people who did the makeup, because I'm like, oh, how very interesting that they did that. Oh, they decided to use syrup in the blood. That's smart of them. Like, just so I don't freak out.
I watch a lot of horror movies. I read a lot of horror, and it takes a lot to like freak me out. It'll be just, sometimes it's an image or a turn of phrase or something. I was reading a horror book called 12 Nights at Rotterhouse, and I read it earlier this year, maybe like in December I read it. And it was the first book I'd ever read that it had a jump scare, and it's a book, and that's really hard to do. I would give the horror book overall, after I finished it, like maybe like 6 stars out of 10. It wasn't a great, but it wasn't terrible. But like, there's one scene in it where when you're reading it, you'll actually jump when you read it. And I've never had a book do that before. I mean, I've had an overall creepy feeling, unsettled, but I've never been jump scared at a book. It's pretty common when you watch a movie, but like when you're reading a book to get a jump scare, wow, that's, at least this dude did that right in this story. Like, okay, you got a jump scare. That's pretty cool. So
yeah, I mean, you have to be pretty deep into the reading of the book for you to like have that experience versus like, sort of seeing it happen ahead of time. It's like, oh, I always sort of skim a page as I go. Like I turn the page and I kind of go all the way up and down and then go into reading. So I ruin it for myself. But that's pretty great.
Sometimes I read the end too, and I'm just like, what did I do that for? I'm not spoiler phobic usually. I don't know why I would do it in books, though. That seems real lame with me, but sometimes I do it. So I don't know.
Well, you can do things like, I really like this book, and if it turns out I die today, I just kind of want to know what happens at the end.
I like to know that I'm not wasting my time, but again, like, that is part of the journey. It's not about the destination, it's the journey to get there. So I hope nobody does that with my books, but maybe they do. Who knows? People do weird stuff.
Yeah. I wonder if, like, culturally we're more like that now, because we have, like, a binge culture when it comes to, like, being able to watch, watch movies or TV shows, or, even these days with, like, Audible books. You could definitely skip to the end, listen to, like, the last chapter, and then go forward, And I wonder if there's something about, I don't know, wanting to have control over your own experience or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, people don't like to wait for things, and I don't think they've ever liked to do it, but especially now in like the Netflix age and the streaming, like, you don't have to wait for anything. You don't even have to have commercials if you pay enough money to not have commercials. So I guess people, they wouldn't know, like, because I'm extraordinarily old sometimes, I feel like. But, I mean, I remember when, the TV shows, like, cut off in May, and all summer long they ran reruns, and that was when you got caught up if you accidentally missed anything the whole rest of the year.
Yeah.
So, like, they would run, like, Magnum PI ran its whole season, and then it would start over and run that whole season again over the summer, and you could watch it again. But people don't get that now. Like, they're like, oh, I'm not going to bother if all the episodes aren't streaming. But I have noticed that some shows are going back to that. Like, Disney Plus streams The Mandalorian now, and they release like an episode a week. So they're getting back to that format of like make you wait for it. I love that anticipation.
Yeah.
But again, also I'm a payoff kind of girl too. So I also like when they just have all the episodes. It was fun for The Mandalorian, but
I think some shows need to be binged. Like if I can't have 6 of them in a row, I don't want any. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
there are some shows that, are live and I'll get them later, like on Amazon or Hulu or something, and I'll legitimately wait 6 weeks in before I start watching because I'm like, no. I can't just have 1 hour of this. I need 3 or more for me to, like, feel like I can do anything, because sometimes I really think, and I watch old shows this way too, like I've watched old cop shows from the 90s, when you watch it week to week, the journey of like emotional stuff sometimes is less because you're not as in it in the moment. Whereas like these writers wrote this season probably all together. And so like what happens to, Joe from first, second, and third episodes as he figures out how to navigate this new police district or whatever, like I feel it so much stronger when I watch 1, 2, 3 right after each other, as opposed to like 1, wait a week, 2, wait a week. And I do that with some current shows where it's like I watch them each week when they come out, but then I go back and I rewatch them all together. And it's like, man, it's such a stronger emotional hold on me when I binge it.
Yep. Yeah, and it just depends on the show and it depends on the content. I mean, I watched The Crown over like Christmas, and I binge watched like 3 seasons of The Crown in like a day and a half. I just couldn't stop watching it. That's pretty rare for me to not be able to stop watching something, because I get bored. I like maybe watch like 3 episodes. I'm like, okay, I got other stuff to go do, and I go do some. Like I legitimately was like all about the Windsors and Queen Elizabeth. I'm like, I know everything about Queen Elizabeth now, and you do not know everything about this woman or care to actually. But anyway, like I was super into it for like 3 days, a day and a half when I watched it, and then 3 days after, all I could do was talk about The Crown. My friends were all like sick with it, like, yeah, it's on TV, it's great.
Do you think it's like, more fun because it's true-ish? I say ish because I'm sure there's some creative license, but.
There's a lot of situations where I didn't know, like, it's historical, so I didn't know what they're talking about. Like, there's an episode where there's a coal mine collapses in Wales, and the Queen's like, I don't know what to do about this crap. And, and it's just her response to it and, like, her personal response to it. And so I didn't know what that was. I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. Let me look that up. So it spurs you to, like, read more and, like, look stuff up. So I think the historical shows are cool that way, and that they ask you to kind of like go along with them, and also like you can find out more about this later if you want to. So it's really good, and the acting is superb. Like I'm not sure there's any better acting on Netflix than the ladies that play Queen Elizabeth II. So
oh wow, that is high praise. Good. That is high praise. I enjoy quite a bit on Netflix, so that is amazing. Interesting. I wonder if, like, the historical shows are almost like, well, I think of it like true crime. Like, you watch those shows sometimes to be like, I can't believe people would do this. Real people. And, like, you watch historical shows the same way, where you're like, this app actually happened. Like, this was a thing. This is a lady who they were like, so you're queen now. And she's like, okay. Like, what? How do you, what a crazy thing to happen to a person. And that person exists, and she had to deal with this. Like, what?
And still exists, and she's like, like 958 years old now. But like she, like back in her day, like she was it. She like worked on G. Like I'm not gonna like. I guess I don't need to like be like the Queen is so awesome. I'm not British, but like,
or
you know,
Canadian.
it's a cool show. So it's a lot of fun to watch. The acting's superb. Like, the costumes are amazing. Like, if you like, you know, if you like production, you like the craft of acting, I think it's a master class. Like, Olivia Colman is one of the best actresses I've ever seen. She's amazing.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
And then, I mean, like, I go from that. So it sounds like I have highbrow taste, and then I go from that to like watching crap like Velocipaster on. And I'm just, I was like, why am I watching this nonsense? But after I was done, I was like, this was not a waste of my 45 minutes. It wasn't a waste at all. So,
well, it's not.
I highly recommend Velocipaster.
At least you weren't like, I finished The Crown and then I just binged all of Vanderpump Rules. Like, it's like, no, you didn't go that bad.
Oh,
somebody
no.
wrote something and you were interested in what they wrote. That is appreciating another writer. That's not, you know,
yes.
It can be quote unquote crap if you like, but somebody wrote it, you know, like somebody had an idea and convinced other people to make it. And that's impressive, I think.
Yeah.
When you see something on TV and it's like totally insane and terrible, and you're like, but clearly the person who wrote this is an excellent salesperson because this is on TV now. Yeah, they got it done. You know, there have been so many times where I swore, like, I'm like, okay, is someone in my brain stealing my ideas? Because I'll be watching like the previews for something on the CW. Like, I remember when the Vampire, whatever the heck that crap was, Vampire Diaries? I don't know, whichever one that was. I mean, that's the name
of it. But then there was
show.
a spin-off called The Originals, where it was like these brothers and sisters, and one's like a werewolf vampire. I'm like, someone stole that idea straight out of my head, CW. I was going to pitch that to you, and now someone has stolen it. And I cannot write it now. I'm very sad about it.
Well, I mean, you can, but it'll just be called fan fiction, which is unfortunate.
It is unfortunate, but, you know, no, it's just unfortunate. I don't want to say, like, all writing is valid. Like, if that's your form of entertainment and writing and you want to do that, that's awesome. It's also way more fun to create your own characters and make up new stories. But, you know if you want to write Golden Girls fan fiction, go right ahead. I will actually read that. That would be great. Read the heck out of that.
I'm going to search for Golden Girls fan fiction. That sounds good.
I think you'll be saddened when you do. I think you'll be.
Oh no!
You won't be able to unsee it.
Oh no! Is it erotic?
You won't be able to unsee it.
Don't.
Probably.
I don't want you to
have
to.
It's the internet.
It. Yeah, you're right.
It's the internet.
Terrible.
You know. It's going to be there.
I think of fan fiction in two different ways. One is like, it seems like an excellent exercise because like you don't have to go through, if the part of writing that scares you the most is coming up with the idea, yeah, absolutely use somebody else's framework and try to write within it because then you're working on your skills, you're trying to figure out how to do it. And then the other thing is, realistically, you need to learn how to do writing in another person's voice because if you want to write for television, you're probably going to write for somebody else a bunch before you get to write for yourself. So you might as well learn how to do that.
Yeah, you know, in a creative writing class I had, the instructor, one of the activities that we first did was to take, you know, like a piece of fiction and then try to imitate it. Not exactly, but like write in the style of this. You imitate it. Yeah, imitate it. And that's because like you're just learning how to tell the story. You're learning how to craft the story and paying attention to what the other person did. And yeah, I agree. Like, you know, if you're getting a job as a TV writer, you're definitely playing in somebody else's sandbox. That's not yours. You didn't make up, you know, the characters of Xena the Warrior Princess. Like maybe you did, but you're not going to write all the episodes. So if you're getting hired to write a Xena the Warrior Princess episode, you're basically writing fan fiction. I mean,
yeah. I mean, you got to know what the first person who pitched the idea, the person who's sort of in charge of, you know, what the way the story goes, how they want it, and then what the characters are going to do. I mean, I can imagine 1,000 times one of those scripts goes in and they're like, no, she would never do that. Or this guy is not going to be the guy who does that. This other character will do it because it'll facilitate something else later. You know, like it's hardly even like, it's just you're facilitating somebody else's vision in that moment. You know, that happens a lot. I wonder, you know, I hear a lot of people doing like, you know, ghostwriting for other people as well. So there's that, you know, you got to learn how to write in other people's voices if that's the
Yep.
kind of writing that you're doing. But I feel like we're a little off track from you because that's not the writing that you do. You do your own stories and you create your own stuff.
Yeah, I don't write fan fiction. I don't write for TV yet. I would love to write for TV, but I don't.
You'd be great for writing for TV. Mm-hmm.
My dream would be to write a soap opera. Soap operas aren't that popular anymore. I don't think they're kind of out of fashion. Mm-hmm. But like, I'm a big Days of Our Lives fan from way, way back in the day. So I would be all about writing some sort of weird soap opera, like if you put like demons in it and like. I mean, basically True Blood. I guess I'm just describing True Blood.
Oh, I was like, anyway, you watch Supernatural? Because it's very dramatic. I mean, there's crying every episode. And it's two dudes, so it's a lot of, like, man crying. Like, it's deeply emotional, weird, operatic sort of demons and whatnot. So, yeah. I think the world can use that. Yeah, I love Supernatural. But I think soap operas are great. The format of it fits perfectly with the sort of like wild nature we're always looking for.
Oh yeah. I took a theater history class in college, and the guy told me that he walked into his first day of writing for The Young and the Restless, and they handed him a copy of Edith Hamilton's Mythology and said, this is all you need. Just steal everything out of this. Just write stuff. And then he's like, what? And he's like, yeah, it's all in there. Just recycle it. It's fine.
Can you imagine? That's insane. No way.
Look, if you're going to pay me, I'm going to do whatever. I hate to be like that, but like, I need to make money too. So I will do whatever I got to do to make money. Because then you can be like, all right, now I'm going to do my own stuff. That's fine. Yeah. I mean, I'm currently doing my own stuff and like barely getting paid for it, so that's fine too. But
sure, I'll do whatever you'd like for money.
Well, not anything, but very close. Yeah,
certainly writing. Sure. Yeah, I'll write whatever. Oh yeah, that's funny. So you mentioned earlier a creative writing workshop. What kind of like workshops have you taken during the course of your writing career? Are there any that stand out as particularly like important to your development as a writer, or at least the most fun, perhaps?
Yeah, when I first moved to Texas, because like my day job isn't writing. My day job is like boring science or whatever, and so
scientists love that when we call it boring.
Yeah, boring science. So like I took a night class at the local community college, and it was creative writing. And so it was just a good group of people, and it was people just trying to figure out themselves as writers, and they weren't really writers, not all of them. They were just there to take a class. But the ones that were there to be writers were really pretty serious about it. And I learned how to be a good reader and critiquer in that class. I think that was really important to me. It served me well over the rest of my writing days. I took a really cool class. This is going to sound bad, but I took a class about writing trauma. It's been a few months ago. But it wasn't what I expected. I expected there to be more writers in there that were just interested in being true to writing trauma. But it ended up being a group of people who'd been through a lot of trauma and were writing about it to work their way out of it. So it was a little bit depressing a little bit, but not really, in that it was cool to see people trying to work their way through it and how they were using words to work their way through it. And I really respected that. And I respected how open and honest they were, and that was a good class.
But I wonder, from that point of view, like if you're writing, if you've gone through trauma, are you, I don't know, sort of able to write the full view of it? I mean, I guess that's the point. Like if you can see every side, every perspective, then you're sort of healing yourself in dealing with it, because in a story, you're not just writing from one person's point of view, or sometimes you are, I suppose, but like oftentimes it's like you have to be like, this person felt this way and that person felt that way, and then they did this, so you would kind of have to understand how to process that before you could even do the writing. Man, that's fascinating.
Yeah, they were, like I said, they were in that class for a completely different reason than I was, but I learned a lot from them, just listening to them and how they reacted to things. And I mean, from my perspective, like I was there because I feel like trauma is what I write all the time. I'm always, when you have a character that's going through something, or a horror story, or even just a weird story. I mean, I have a series of books, my Tooth and Nail series. This character has got nothing but trauma in her life. And so I like to be true to that. Like, I don't want to write stuff that's inauthentic and, not accurate to what actually happens to people. And I've had a conversation with friends who write also about, when you write about abuse, or you write about, terrible things happening to people, you need to be like respectful about it, and how graphic is too graphic, and how many details do I need to add. You don't need to add a whole bunch of details. You just need to be true. And I think that's what's really important. So
I bet you having those other students,
tell the truth.
I bet you those other students in your class really helped you see that truth, though. Like, if you had just been a bunch of writers discussing, like, the certain ways that you persuasively show the audience how this traumatic thing has happened, then maybe, the trauma that you are able to currently write wouldn't be so visceral and, connected to the person going through it. You had to meet these people and then learn how to, balance, like you're saying, balance the details and the gore with the emotions, so that you get that sweet spot of, like, the audience really feeling it with the person.
Yeah, and that's what I really wanted. Again, I just want to be true. I want to be respectful. I want to be real about it. And so that was really important to me. And I didn't expect to get that out of it. I didn't expect to be so profoundly changed by it, but I really was. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to have classes like that around me. I mean, I live in Houston, so there's a lot of really good writing classes and writing groups. So I've been pretty fortunate in that. I took a world building class one time that was kind of interesting. World building, when I hear that people say that word, I kind of like cringe a little bit, because it just is like real fantasy. It lends itself to fantasy writing, which I'm terrible at. Like, I've tried. I'm like, I'm not a Tolkien kind of writer. I can't do this flowery stuff. Like, it's not going to happen for me. I mean, I like dragons and lightsabers and crap as much as probably more than the next person, but it's just not what I'm really good at writing, and I don't enjoy it so much. So when I hear world building, I'm like, I don't care about all this stuff. I just want to be immersed in the story without having to do a whole lot of work. Like, I think of people like, unfortunately it's a fantasy writer, but like George R.R. Martin, he does pretty well with world building. He just kind of drops you in the middle and lets you figure it out as you go. And I think that's really important. But if those classes, they're good if you are that kind of writer. If you're a fantasy writer, I think that's a better class, but it wasn't my jam. But it was all right. I mean, everybody needs a little bit of world building, so it's good sometimes.
Yeah, I think a lot of times that happens. It's probably better for writers who are, creating an entirely different universe to set their stories in, as opposed to, something earlier you referred to the lottery as, quote, mundane horror. And I think that there's something, really interesting about using the world that we know, that we live in, and all the possible pitfalls to create horror and suspense and stories. Most of your stories, are they set in the real world then, since you're not so into creating other worlds? Are you keeping the world sort of grounded in, this could be here, this could be in Houston in 2020 right now, like, don't worry.
I write in real world places. So my 2 books that are in a series are set in Appalachia, or Appalachia, if you're from there. So they're noir stories. They're Appalachian noir stories with supernatural elements chucked in there, because I think it's fun. So if you are from the area, you'll hear the real places. Like, you're like, oh, I know where that was. Yep, I know where that was too. And I'm currently working on one that's going to be in a couple of different real world places. So it's mine's the real world with like weird elements thrown in. Now, short story wise, like, I've written a lot of short stories. They're almost always a what if story, or a creature, or a mythological creature, or a ghost story. So they're kind of real world stuff, but not like, I don't write historical fiction or anything like that. So I can't be that literal.
Yeah, but like scary creature in the real world. Like, you're not like, because, like, you're right. Things like Lord of the Rings, that's a whole other world. That's a whole other thing. Like, Game of Thrones, they got 75 religions in that place and dragons and stuff. Like, it's not our world. It's a different kind of thing. So you're putting a creature in the space, the contrast of, but it's like in Omaha, Nebraska, legit Omaha, Nebraska, makes it way scarier. No. Especially these days with the internet. I'm like, this could be a true story. You don't know.
And it's more fun that way for me. Like, imagining what, like, a ghoul goes through on a daily basis. That's funny. Like, where's a ghoul going to get food to eat in 2020? How's he going to get dead bodies to eat in 2020?
Sure.
He's going to go to the hospital and he's going to get medical waste. Like, that's what he's going to go get. Or he's, what are you going to do? Dig up graves? It's pretty hard to dig up graves and get bodies. Like, that's not easy.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like to work that hard for my food. So I'm pretty sure the ghouls in my story wouldn't want to work that hard either. But even like, I like to twist, monsters. I don't like to make them exactly like I have, like, people say, oh, I write vampires. Like, that sounds lame. But I mean, my vampire, like, he's like the anti-vampire and he just gets cold sores and he's just kind of gross. Like, I think he's funny. So that's what I like doing. I like turning the monster on its head. I like messing with it. And making it a little bit funny. Cause I mean, to me, like, some of my favorite horror things are funny, like Fright Night and things that are like, you would laugh through them the same as you would cringe through them. So I like both. But yeah, like they're mostly in the real world. I mean, I have one book. It's a zombie apocalypse book. I say it's like Indiana Jones and The Walking Dead mashup, which is not really, but it's adventure-y and it's got zombies in it. And it was fun to write. It's a lot of action. So that takes place in post-apocalyptic world. I guess it's still the world, but it's not, that's my one shot at creating a world that's not real.
Yeah, so, you did it. You took
the
workshop, so now you had to use the skills you developed, man. You're like, I'm smarter now. Got to do it.
Man, those people are like, but what's the religion of the people? I'm like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, right. Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's just not my jam.
Detailed.
But people that love that, they really love it. So I'm all for it if that's what you really love. It's just not what I'm good at writing or what I even really love. I mean, I enjoy some fantasy, just not all of it.
I just really like it when, you can tell that they put a lot of effort into connecting stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like where, they like a detail they told you on like the third page turns out to be like, that's the clue that would have solved the whole thing for you. You're like, what? You're like,
and
the amulet
writer,
she picked up in the first line is the thing that's the whole crux of the situation? Like...
As a writer, like, you love putting those little nuggets in too, right? You're like, oh, watch what I'm going to do here. And then you do it, and you read the whole thing, you're like, oh, that doesn't fit. When you have to cut something like that, you're like, why do I have to cut that part? I like that part. But I guess kill your darlings, so...
Yeah.
if you like it, you probably just need to cut it. That's sad, but true.
Yeah. It's bad, but true. Not always. I mean, if you like it too much, then if it's going to cause trouble for you, if there's no way you'll ever let anyone give you editing notes on it, you should probably let it go. But, but I think, you probably know a little bit about what's good you're writing. It's fine. It's your story.
The more you write, the better you get at knowing what's good and what's not. I mean, I know when I've hit a short story or when I'm really hitting a novel, I know. And I think most writers do that. When you hit that groove or, you just nailed a short story. I mean, I don't always do it on the first shot. I actually just finished one for an anthology about a week ago, and I had to work for that one. Like, it wasn't right the first shot. The second half of the story was great. It was exactly what I wanted it to be. The first half just wasn't there, and I couldn't figure out what it was. I mean, I kind of knew what it was, but I didn't know how to get there. And, I'm really lucky in that I have a good creative community that I can rely on. I took it to friends and I said, you guys read this and tell me what you think, what's up with it. So they did. And they're like, yeah, I don't know exactly either, but I think you need to do this. And they were right. As soon as I heard them say what I was already in my brain, I'm like, okay, I got this now. I went home and I just wrote and wrote and wrote and fixed it. And that's what it is. It's just work. It's taking feedback. It's fixing things that aren't right. And it's recognizing that, you know, you're not going to get it right the first shot every single time, but you can't fix what you didn't write. So you have to get it out. You have to write it, and then you can fix it later. And that's part of the writing maturity process and learning how to be a writer and a reader and a critiquer, and how to take feedback and how to give it, which is, you know, if you can't learn those things, I don't think you can be a real writer to me. Like if you can't learn how to, and that's any, I guess, creative endeavor, you have to learn how to take that feedback and make it better. But writing especially, and it's tough because writing feels really personal. You know, when you write a story and you share it with people, and then they give you feedback that's like, this part isn't very good. Like, what do you mean it's not very good? Are you saying I'm not very good?
Yeah.
What are you saying here? And you can't get like that. You can't be defensive. You have to just like listen to it. And it's there for, you know, people are trying to give it to you for a reason. They're probably not doing it to be mean. Some people do it to be mean, but most people don't. And once you've built that community of people that you can trust and that know your writing, know your work, and know what you're capable of, you know, you trust them to tell you, like, this one's not very good, but this one's really good. Do more of this. And that's, you know, that's where I'm at with a lot of my people that I hang out with and that I write with. I'm really lucky, but
that's really great.
It's work, man. It's work always.
So sounds great that you have, you know, this community around you that can help you with feedback and help you, you know, progress through and kind of break through possible trouble in stories. Tell me more about that. So you like started your writing in the, you know, creative writing class. How did you connect with the Houston writing community? How did you get this group together of friends that, you know, help you with feedback? And they're also writers, right? You're like helping them too?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I'd taken the creative writing class and I was writing little bits and pieces, but I ended up going to the big Comic Con that's here in town, Comicpalooza, and they have a pretty decent literature track. At the time, it was smaller than what it is now. But I went to a couple of panels, and one of them was about how to find your community. And so I learned about this group called the Houston Horror Writers Meetup group. So I started going to that. They had a meetup every Monday, first Monday of the month or second Monday of the month, and at a restaurant. And it was just people sitting around eating, talking about writing horror and science fiction and fantasy. And it was really fun. I met people that way, and I got into a critique group that way. You know, you meet like 4 new people and they're like, hey, I'd like to be in a critique group. Let's set it up. So you set it up. I started writing more, and I just started, then the floodgates kind of come open. You start writing and writing and writing and reading and critiquing. And from that group, like, you know, I met some other people, and it just kind of snowballed into what it is now. Now I know a ton of people. It's a really active writing community in Houston. So everybody's really interested in, I think, helping each other and being pretty supportive. I feel very supported anyway. And it's been fun to meet people and see, and everybody writes different stuff. You know, there are fantasy writers and true crime writers and romance writers. And it's been fun, like kind of learning all the different people and what they write and how their style is different from mine. And so it's really fun. I mean, it's a good group of people. They're always happy to help you if you need help, and fun to hang out with. And I think that makes you more creative, you know, when you're having fun doing it, and you know, like people respect you and you respect them. I think that's just where good things come from, right? Like you just want to create more, and that's the space I'm in right now. In fact, I probably just have too many projects going on. I want to write everything, and I can't. I have to focus on a couple things and write. So.
Do you pare down your list of ideas yourself, or do you bring all the ideas to your group and pitch it and see what people like and do that?
I do that. So I have a friend that I trust probably the most, and so I'll give her like 2 or 3 things, and she'll read them, and she'll be like, and not that one, not that one, maybe that one. That one's pretty good. Do that. I think I had like a really involved vampire novel that was going on, and she hates vampires and crap like that. And she said, I can't believe I'm going to tell you this. Write the vampires. I'm like, what? What did you say? Sorry. I thought I misheard you. I did not end up doing that. I started something else, but you know, I trust them to tell me what's right and what's not. And usually they're just echoing what's already in my head. I mean, you kind of know yourself, like, okay, this one's not good. Don't write that.
Yeah.
But sometimes you trick yourself. I started writing a horror novel that it felt a little too close to home sometimes when I was writing it. And I was like, am I writing an autobiography or am I writing a horror book? Either way, it's probably horrific. But I had to put it down for a little bit, and I didn't think it was good. I'm like, this is terrible. This is so crap. I put it down, and I started writing something else, and that felt good for a while. I'm like, okay, this feels pretty good, but there's something not quite right about this one either. I'm not hitting this one. You know, I might have started a short story and finished that, and down back on some other novel that I'm like, I'm going to pick this one up. But I'll finish this one that I'm working on now because it's a part of a series, so I have to finish it. But anyway, the horror novel, I'm like, what am I going to do with that? And I need to keep writing it for me. This is part of my growth as a writer, is to be able to write this effectively. And so, you know, I'm going to do it serially. I'm going to post it online serially for free, so you can just get it when it's done, as the parts come out. So kind of like Stephen King, only for free, how he did The Green Mile. Mine's like, you know, not that. But that's what I want to do. You know, I want to try a lot of different mediums. I want to work on different projects, whatever I feel like writing that day, I want to write. And that sounds kind of like unfocused, but I mean, sometimes that's the way you have to do it. I think, like, write what feels good. That's what you're going to want to do. That's what you want to get done. And, you know, I'm writing it for me. I'm not on a deadline for anybody. So it's what I want to write. So that's the fun part.
Makes me think of the people in your trauma writing course, though, that, you know, it's not even just what you want to write, it's what you have to write. Like, you have to do it. And even, like,
Yep.
when you were talking about the story, and it's like, is this horror or is this an autobiography? And, you know, it was, like, messing with you. It feels like maybe that was similar to what they were doing. They were sort of going through their trauma by writing it out, and they had to write some and then get away from it, and then write a little bit more and then, like, get away from it. I know I personally have a story that I've been working on that's very personal, and every time I write it, I, like, get into it, and then I get working on it, and then I feel super self-conscious, and I'm like, this doesn't matter, why are you doing this? And then I put it away, and then there's a nagging voice in my head that's like, you gotta write that. That's a thing that needs to come out. I'm like, why? It doesn't matter. It's just my own crap. No one cares about my own crap. But their voice in my head says, you gotta write it. You gotta write it. And, you know, I think about that when it comes to, you know, certain ideas. They, like, won't let you go, whether it's to process your own emotions in about your own life or life experiences, or if it's just like a character that's, like, living inside of you and then, like, has to get out. Like, some things just don't let you go.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that it's hard to let those people go, and it's hard to let the stories go. So yeah, the one I'm writing, it's not autobiographical, but it felt that way because I was using a lot of things from my own experience and the place I grew up and things that I felt about things. And, you know, that's what I do. Like, that's what I do. I take input and I turn it into something else, but I have to have experienced that for me so I can process it and use it. I mean, and that's being truthful and authentic. I think, like, right now, I mean, I don't know when this will air, but I mean, the big thing that I've been reading about in the literary world is this American Dirt book, which is about Mexican immigrants, like illegal immigration. And it's written by, you know, not a Hispanic person, not a Latina. And people are like, wait a minute, this isn't right. There's like 100 books that you could have promoted, like, more authentic than this book. And this is the one you're choosing to put in Oprah's book club and you know, do. And I think their point is, like, you haven't experienced that. That's not your life. How do you write about that? Well, to be fair, like, I haven't experienced, like, you know, a zombie apocalypse, but I wrote about that too. I know it's not the same thing. It's not really even remotely the same thing, but it sort of is. Like, you have to imagine it. It's about doing it correctly. So if you write about something that you didn't really experience, but you did your research, and you were truthful about it and you were respectful about it, that's the best you can do. You know, you learn from it, and it's easier when you've had the experiences. But it's your job as a writer to be truthful and to be like, to do it well. If you're going to write something, write it well, no matter what it is, and it'll shake out. So I don't know, you know, like I want to give Jeanette Cummins or whatever her name is the benefit of the doubt. I have the book to read. I haven't read it yet, but like, it smacks of bad publishing decisions, right? Like a big publishing house decides to promote this lady over somebody else. And I don't know about all that. I just know that, you know, if you're going to write something that didn't happen to you, I mean, most of us write things that don't happen to us, but if you do, you have to be like competent at it. So try and be competent at it, or even better than competent, try to be good at it. So tell the truth.
It sounds like this book is sort of like a sociology or a political book about what's going on in the world from someone's perspective. In the case of, which is, you're right, you know, the writer of something like that, if you're going to write about something that's happening that's real, why not be a person, or at least interview a person who's really gone through what's going on. But when you come to other fictional stories, because you were like, well, I've never been through a zombie apocalypse, I really feel like, you know, there's something to be said for metaphor. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think all of The Walking Dead is actually about a zombie apocalypse. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's
absolutely
about finding your own way in a world that isn't what you expected. Or, like, you know, how do you deal with, you know, life after the part that you planned for? You know, stuff like that. You know, though the television show is long, as is the graphic novels for sure, but they go through all sorts of like ups and downs. And, you know, I'm always fascinated that most of those kinds of fantastical stories often are using these worlds as metaphors. And it's like, you know, I had a hard time after college trying to get a job, but I'm not going to write a story about a guy who can't get a job. I'm going to write a story about a guy who trained for a really long time to kill a dragon but can't do it, even though it's the only thing he has to do, and everyone's super disappointed at him. Like, you know, and it's the same thing. It's the same situation. It's just finding a way for it. Now, I don't know anything about this current book that is in the anger zeitgeist about cultural appropriation
exactly at
all. But at the same time, like when it comes to fiction, I am all about, you know, writing things that potentially you haven't gone through. And you're right, research is important. I mean, how could you possibly write, you know, something like that? If you're going to write like an alien abduction, wouldn't you want to read a bunch of alien abduction like accounts so that you could make it somehow match that, or specifically not match that, you know, if that's what you wanted to do?
Yeah.
You know, so, yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for research and for people that are interested in topics, whether or not they themselves were part of it. And then another thing is, you know, to be fascinated by, you know, an experience that maybe you haven't gone through. To go back again to your trauma workshop, like the people that were in that class who had gone through trauma and were writing it from that point of view, they weren't angry with you for being in the class, right? They weren't like, how dare you
not at all
write these stories? That's not your story, you know? So, I don't know.
Not at all. You know, that was the cool part, is that they were like, it's cool that you're here for this reason. You know, people appreciate that. I mean, I think people, that's just it. Like, people appreciate realness. They appreciate like truthfulness in writing, whether they know it or not. I mean, like, people, I just like a good story or whatever. But you still want to feel like you're there. You want to feel like the person who's writing it knows what they're talking about, and because that means you'll feel like you know what you're reading and talking about. I mean, if I don't do my job as a writer, like, you're like, I don't know what she's talking about. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So that's the skill that you have. That's it's the job that you have, no matter what you're writing about. Like, if you're writing about, you know, like if you're writing Golden Girls fan fiction and you don't get the fact that they call their patio a lanai, you call it the patio. I'm like, you never even watched the Golden Girls. You don't even know.
Gotta do your research.
Like, it's important. do your research. It's really important to be specific and to do your research. And, you know, I try to do that. I mean, like, when you write, like, you have, like, the craziest Google searches ever. You know, the other day I was like, I wonder how many people I could fit into a tanker truck. Like, a tanker truck that goes over the road. It has, like, 3 compartments in it. How many people could fit in each compartment? And I posed this question to the Facebook, you know, hive mind, and I get back, like, people like, what kind of compartment? How many people? Blah, blah, blah. How tall are the people? Well, I'm like, I don't know. Just like regular people. You know, like, it was probably one of my biggest threads on my Facebook. I'm like, I don't know what to be impressed or freaked out by you guys. Cause, like, you know, but that's like the sort of stuff when you write, you're like, okay, I got to figure this out. Like, how many people could I get in here? What actually happens when a body blows up in space? You know, there's like a ton of stuff that you don't know. You have to go find out. You can't write it stupid. Like, if you write anything science fiction and you get the science wrong, or you get stuff wrong about space, like, people will freak out. Like, I know I freak out when people get, like, chemistry stuff wrong. I'm like, that's not even how that works. Like, you don't even know how that works. You're right. I got mad when I watched, like, the last Terminator movie, spoiler alert. Like, they go through all this stuff, and they're in a hydroelectric power plant, and they have to overload a mechanical guy. I'm like, you're in a power plant. This isn't that hard. Like, it's basic science. And I thought, well, that destroys the illusion. But, you know, you have to, if you get it wrong for science fiction people, like, they'll never forgive you. You have to know the audience and know what you can be forgiven for and what you can't. Like, I think fantasy people, you have a little more leeway because you're creating the world. Science fiction, yeah, they like science, and they want to know exactly how does the hyperdrive on the Millennium Falcon work? They want to know that. Like, I don't give a shit how that works. I just want to know when it doesn't work. The only thing that's important to me is that somebody disabled it. I don't care why they disabled it, or I care why. I don't care how they disabled it, and I don't care how you get it working again. I just want to know that it's disabled. So that's the difference in, I think, fantasy writers versus science fiction writers. And I mean, the horror writers, like, okay, is it going to blow up and kill everybody? Is there a monster in the hyperdrive? Will it make everyone a mutant? Like, that's what the horror writer, you know, wants to know, but it's just different.
It's funny, though, that you come from your, you know, science background, and so you're judging the science in the movies. Like, that's so funny. I always think about that, you know, and Chris does that, too, when we're watching movies. Like, he'll have some strong opinion. Like, what was it? We were watching something the other day, and the character was supposed to be a, like, professional DJ or something like that, and when the scene ended, he turned to me and he was like, that microphone was a terrible microphone. A professional would never have had it. And I was like, oh, my God. Like, of course you noticed that. You know, like, that's the detail. But, I mean, I do it about things I know, too. I'm like, oh, yeah. No, that's not actually how they do the theater thing. But that's sweet of them to try. You know, things like that, yeah. You know, little details that we all notice based on our own individual expertise. But you're right about things like sci-fi with, like, consistency in science, where it's like, we've established that this, like, I was watching the other day, we were watching, like, Star Wars, and I was like, I find it interesting that they've, like, we've just all decided that it's fine that every alien can be on any planet. They don't need, like, a head thing. There's, like, the atmosphere is fine for everyone. Like, no matter what planet you go to, any possible person from any other planet can just walk in. It's cool. It's fine. You know what I mean? And my husband was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, in lots of other space movies, they're wearing, like, headgear, or they're like, this person's not from this planet, so they have to wear another thing. Like, in Guardians of the Galaxy, they acknowledge that when you go up into space, there's sort of, like, not only a coldness, but also, like, a lack of oxygen. They discuss that. Whereas in the exact same scenario in Star Wars, they don't. They're like, don't even think about how cold it is or the fact that there's no oxygen. Nope, they just move forward like it's regular. And I was like, they just made that decision, and I find it interesting. Makes sense. They did it in the 70s. They didn't need all the extra accoutrement. And also they were probably like, whatever, science, it's fine. And
I think, you know, it's about the story they're trying to tell, right? Star Wars is really a fantasy story. It's not really science fiction.
Yeah.
it's more fantasies, and you care more about that part than you care about like the inner workings of an X-wing.
Oh, totally.
But when you're watching
matter.
Star Trek, Star Trek is straight up science fiction. So like you actually care, like it's important how like slipstream technology works or transporters, how they work. Like that's part of the fun of the story is how those things work, because they're going to go awry. So that's the point. It's like, okay, how do I fix it with science?
Yeah. Well, plus with Star Trek, too, like, part of the purpose of the whole thing is that they're, like, seeking out new things. So they're like, how does this work, right? As opposed to, like, in the Star Wars world, everyone's like, yeah, we get it. There's a bunch of planets. It's fine. Like, so it's not like, ooh, what's this? Brand new. So, I could see them dealing with the brand new by making it unusual and like, oh, we have to do this special thing, as opposed to the Western that is Star Wars.
Yeah, and it's tough, like, I don't know, genre blending is tough sometimes. You can't please everybody all the time, so you have to be careful. But I kind of do that. Like, I don't really stick in one or the other. I try to play around in all the sandboxes. I think sometimes it works. It actually works for me. I don't think it would work for everybody. It works for me. If you like my writing, then you like the idea that this is a detective story and it's about hillbillies and there's maybe a werewolf in there. Like, it's not, all those things together work. They don't sound like they would, but when you smush them all together, they work. It's like, lasagna or whatever. It's like, I made lasagna. Or, like, because, like, it looks weird.
Mm-hmm.
You have to assemble all the components and get it together. And once you've got it together, it makes sense. Maybe lasagna wasn't a good food example.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. I love it. Your books are lasagna. I think that's lovely. No, because you're right. Like, if you were to try to explain, like, show somebody all the different parts of lasagna and be like, see this ricotta cheese? It's going to be delicious in a minute. You're like, get out of here with that. Gross. And then they're like, here's a big chunk of tomatoes in a pile. Love them. And you're like, what? And they're like, see this hard stick? It's going to be awesome pasta in a minute. You're like, get away from me. I do not want these things. I don't want this sheet of hard pasta. I don't want this white ricotta cheese. And you're like, hold on, give me a second. Wait a second. And put it together. Deliciousness. And then you're like, ta-da. And you're like, what? It's amazing. So yeah, the combo of things. I love lasagna. That not just the food, but yes, of course, I do love lasagna. But I love lasagna as a metaphor, like as the phrase for what your books are. Like, heck yes.
They would be the lasagna of the book world. Yeah, they're not. They're things that don't necessarily think they would all go together, but when you smush them together, they do.
I love it. So, final question to you. What are you working on right now that you're most excited about, that you want to share with the world, that you're like super excited? I guess you don't have to be ready to share it with the world yet, but like right now you're super excited. When we hang up the phone, you're going to go write it or work on it or just be excited to put it on the internet.
I'm actually working on the third and not final. I mean, like it'll be a series, but the third novel of like my cycle of novels that I've been working on. I just started, and it came about because I was like, I don't know what to write. I'm gonna keep writing this weird thing I'm working on, and then I ended up doing like a little side project with the character, and I was sort of, I wouldn't say I wasn't forced into it or anything, but like I was like, I don't know about this. This might not work out because I'm not really a character person. Like I don't write characters, but I do. I'm lying to myself. So I start writing this character, and then it won't get out of my head. I'm like, all right, I'm going to have to write this book. But once I started writing the book, like the first chapter plurped out in like 15 minutes. I'm like, whoa. So now I'm all on it, and I'm really excited about it. I can't wait to get it done. I'm targeting like a fall release date. So I'm giving myself plenty of time to really work on it and get it done. But it's going to be like, I want to do like an epic end to the story. Like I want to do an epically interesting, and when you're done with it, you're like, huh, wow. So that's what I'm working on. I'm excited about it.
All right.
And it's real crimey and violent and like white trash. And I'm like, this is going to be great. So.
Crimey and violent and white trash. That sounds great. Just write that down. That's what's printed on the front of the book.
Crimey and violent and white trash. You like crime, you like violence, you like white trash. This is for you. So. And there are people that love it.
Yeah.
There are people that love it. So that's what I'm working on. I'm really excited about it. And then a bunch of short stories. I have a bunch of like calls for submissions coming up. So I'm working on themes, and that's always a good distraction for a couple of days. So it's fun. But trying to get that book done is the main thing.
Yeah. You love submitting short stories to contests and stuff? Is that good? Do you get good feedback, or is it really just for like giving yourself a deadline?
Both, so I think I still do these things. They're like New York City Midnight. They have a bunch of different writing contests, but they do flash fiction. You have like 48 hours to churn out a story that is very specific. They give you a genre, they give you an item, they give you a character, sometimes a subject matter, and you have to churn out a story. And it really forces you to like focus, like get down to it, write it, and use the first thing that pops out. Because you don't have very much time, and it's usually the best thing that pops out. Like the first thing that comes to mind is usually the best one, and it's really helped me out. I mean, I've gotten a lot more confident in my short story writing because of it, and I've also gotten really good at deadlines and not messing around with stuff and not second guessing myself when I start to write it. It's been really good for that. I've had pretty good success in it. I've made it past the rounds, and there's a lot of people in these contests. I mean, it's thousands and thousands of people from all over the world. So I've done pretty well in a lot of them. And the feedback you get from the judges is positive for you, so you learn from it. It's made me a more specific writer. It's made me question, like when I leave things unsaid or up to chance, like or really vague in a story, I'm like, do I really need to leave it that vague? Should I put a little more detail in it? And how to do things with less words, because they're usually flash for me. So I'm stuck with like 1,000 words or less. And you have to be pretty good with words to do that. So it's really helped me out in that respect. And then just calls for...
Is that what flash means? Like a limited number?
Yeah, flash is really short fiction. So it can mean, usually it's under 1,000 words. And then like micro is like under 200 words. So I've done 100-word stories. I've done 250-word stories. So it's pretty tough to tell a complete story in 250 words, but it can be done, and it's fun to try. It's almost like poetry. Every word counts. You have to be really careful. But I've enjoyed that. And then just calls for submission. Like when people say, I want a story about something in the forest, it needs to be a horror story. I mean, like that, you're pretty open, but I like working off stuff like that. It gives me like a starting point, and I can, then I think of something cool.
Where do you find these contests to do? Like, where do you find the list of them to apply to?
I've subscribed to a lot of people that find these for me. So it's like a weekly newsletter you get from these writing groups. And
awesome.
Facebook's a great place for a lot of things. I mean, it's a terrible place for a lot of things too, but it's really good for writers. And that, if you join a couple of connecting with groups and short story groups, people post the calls all the time. So I'm always on the lookout for it, for an interesting one, or when I know, even if I have a story already that I've already written, I'm like, oh, that would fit with this, I can send that off. So, that's about getting paid. That's and short stories and anthologies help your exposure. So, if you pick up an anthology and you read a story by me and you like it, you're more likely to like, I wonder who that person is. Let me see if they've written anything else. And then it leads to my other books. And that's what I want. I just want the most readers. I don't care about making money. I just want a lot of people to read. So.
Yeah. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for chatting with me and being on the podcast, sharing your stories and inspirations. I really appreciate you talking to me and giving me your time.
No problem. I loved it. Anytime.
Thanks for listening to Yes But Why Podcast. Check out all our episodes on yesbutwhypodcast.com, or check out all the content on our network, HC Universal, at hcuniversalnetwork.com.